This is opening is it the most exciting exhibition at the SID Display Week so far ever?
It's certainly the biggest ever in our history. Probably also one of the most exciting ones. We have great momentum in the display industry, foldable, rollable, new types of form factors, OLED, full screen displays. It's a really exciting time to be in this industry where not only are displays getting better, but they're really growing into every part of our human life.
So every single spot is booked out?
Every spot is booked out. We had to actually extend all the way up to the capacity limit of the convention center. We had to get every single extra inch we could get. It is by far the largest, massively larger than last year, and last year was already the largest in the last decade. So, and the attendee count, the same, is we're almost 2,000 people up from last year, and last year was larger than it has been since 2005.
So it's up like 20% or more, maybe, the attendance?
Well, more than that. We were 25% up on final count of last year, yesterday already at the pre-registration. So I'm not sure what we're going to end up. And people are registered, like it's the only opening, the main event is opening now, so we might be very much 50% up, yeah.
And so should you try to make it even bigger? What's going to happen next year?
We will. So next year we'll be in San Francisco. We have a bigger convention center to play with, and we are fully planning to make it bigger and better every year.
Is it the Moscone Center or something else? Yeah. So it's like pretty big.
It's pretty big. We have lots of room next year.
And the people start contacting and booking the booths already, right?
Yeah, so 85% of our booth space is booked at the show for the next show.
Nice. And so what are you going to be doing during the show? There's like so many things happening. You have to make sure everybody's happy, or what do you do?
Yeah, my job is just to be master of ceremony and introduce lots of events. Actually, my only real kind of professional contribution is I'm heading to the panel on the investor conference right now. But other than that, my job is to make sure everybody has a good time.
Exactly at what time? Is it 1:30 or no?
At 40.
At 40, so
yeah.
You have still 10 minutes. So what's going to happen there, the investor conference? Are you going to be like a bunch of billionaires looking for opportunities?
Billionaires or billionaires in the making.
Are you one of them?
In the making.
Okay.
So the investor conference is one of our specialty sub-conferences. It's a full-day conference oriented towards the more, well, as you would think, the investment, startup, entrepreneurship part of the display industry.
Like pitches?
So there are some presentations like this. A lot of it is presentations about how to invest. It's bi-directional, so it's towards investors and towards future investees. So it's about how to secure venture capital in the display industry, how to finance display companies, how to work with startups in that sector and so forth. So it's a full-day program.
And you have experience in that?
That's what I do for a living.
Cool stuff.
That's what I do for a living.
What's some of the latest stuff you're working on?
So I run a fund that creates its own companies. So we've created 26 companies in the deep technology space. This is my day job beyond SID. 26 companies.
Just recently, or no?
In the last few years. So we create companies in display, computer vision, imaging, automotive, sensors, all the kind of good stuff that this industry does.
And the people that work in those companies are a little bit distributed, or?
So actually, I live in Montreal, in Canada, and so we built all our companies on synthetic. So we create them from scratch, and we created all of them in Montreal. So they're all based around my office there.
A lot of cool stuff in Montreal.
It's become the epicenter of this whole AI wave because there's the deep learning evolution, which is the sort of foundation of what everybody calls AI now, was really created by 3 researchers, 2 of whom are in Eastern Canada, and so that has become sort of a center point for that era of development.
And like we did in another video, you talked about the HDR that you were contributing to make this happen a bunch of years ago, right? How many years ago?
That's correct. So this is about a decade ago. So I co-founded a startup called BrightSide, which invented the concept of local dimming LED TV, which then ultimately led to the HDR capabilities that we have today. Sold that company to Dolby Laboratories, and so it's what you now call, Dolby commercializes now as Dolby Vision. So I then ran Dolby's Dolby Vision program for a few years.
Nice, and how does it feel to see all the HDR being used now?
It's exciting. I remember coming to SID, to this conference in 2003, giving the first paper on local dimming HDR displays, and everybody thinking, well, that's crazy, we're going to put LEDs behind LCDs, like how would we do that, why would we do this? Today, it is somewhere around 90-95% of all displays on the planet are made as LED TVs, LED backlit LCDs, and
local
HDR.
Dimming in 95, no.
Sorry?
It's just a small part that has local dimming, right? Or is it big part?
We invented and patented actually all aspects of it. So 2-dimensional dimming, 1-dimensional dimming, just backplanes. But remember, back in those days, LCDs had a flat backlight of fluorescent tubes. So the concept of putting LEDs behind LCD has really taken the entire industry by storm.
And then, I mean, it's just so awesome that Netflix, Amazon, all this, they're making everything HDR.
Yep.
That's so cool.
So myself and more importantly a gentleman called Greg Ward, who's actually here, we won an award together from SID for the creation of the HDR concept many years ago. Greg Ward is the inventor of that codec that is now used pretty much by everybody on the planet. The HDR, the Dolby Vision HDR codec that all this content is distributed.
So do you have like an Oscar at home, or?
There is actually an Oscar for technical achievement for that. Yeah, so that my team won. But I would, cool. At that point, to be clear, I'd moved on from Dolby, but the team that did that, including Greg, won an Oscar for this.
Nice. So it's around 10,000, maybe more people coming here, and it's everybody that does everything in display is here, right?
This is a very high impact conference. So unlike a lot of conferences that are sort of consumer oriented, where you get a lot of variety of people attending, everybody here is in the display industry. Many of them are experts, executive leaders. You just saw this, not just at the keynotes, but if you were at yesterday's award dinner, every name mentioned there is a C-level executive from Samsung, B&E, Tianma, like some of the largest companies on the planet. And that concentration of expertise and credibility and market decision-making power is what makes Display Week unique.
The president of BOE is here?
The president of BOE is here, the chairman and founder of BOE is here. So this is somebody who from nothing in 25 years built a tens of billions of dollar company.
Potentially, they say number one in
it's number
volume?
one in the display industry by volume, in phones and TVs, in actually every display class.
And then there's also Samsung.
The CEO of Samsung is here, the CTO of
Samsung
here.
Display or Samsung
Display.
And
right?
then, which is also like leader in lots of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and then LG.
LG is here with, again, C-level all across the board. Every major display manufacturer is here, is present with their top executives.
And the keynote of the Google manager of the hardware at Google, which is also involved in trying to push new hardware into consumer, right?
Yeah,
and getting new
just to be
displays
clear,
and stuff.
not just the manager of, this is the top executive vice president of Google's hardware operation reporting to the CEO. So
we're doing name dropping a lot, right? But there's a lot of others. Like
the list keeps going on and on and on, right? So we have senior executives from essentially every single display maker on the planet. And from many of the integrators. The other part that is sort of a bit invisible, so the display makers are exhibiting here, but the other part of the conference that is extremely present are the integrators. So there's hundreds of people here from all the mobile phone integrators, every single one of them. Even if they're not exhibiting because they're not necessarily a display company, they're the purchaser of these displays, and they're present in force all across the board.
And the iZone is going to show a bunch of cool stuff. So how long can it take? Is it sometimes some awesome things happen faster than people think?
Some stuff can happen quickly.
Longer than people think?
Some stuff can happen quickly, but most of it takes a long time. So if we talked earlier about the local dimming HDR stuff, 2003 first paper, 2007 first sort of public demonstration of a production model, and today global adoption, right?
16 years.
Yeah.
Which is relatively short compared to like 50 years for LCD.
It's definitely accelerating, but it's still not short, right? It's still not overnight success.
Is there any chance to do things faster? How can things be done faster?
So the software parts can get faster, for sure. There's a lot of innovation in AI and other kind of aspects of utilizing software. That's happening faster. But the hardware part, at the keynote from BOE, you saw them talking about the timeline to build different generations of factories. Those fabs, those like Gen 10.5 fabs are tens of billions of dollars of cost. Entire cities are built around those fabs. So it's not a trivial thing that you can just, aside from the R&D effort, just actually realizing this product, and producing it. You have to remember that the display industry, even though it's technically just a component supplier, is one of the largest industries on the planet. It's a $250 billion industry of just that component supply that has become an integral part of our lives.
$250 billion?
Yeah.
250 billion, yeah?
It's a big world, yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted, yes. And you said...
it's in everywhere's life. Like you probably, you're a technologist, so that's even worse, but most people have, half a dozen displays. They may not even think about it, right? Like they have, of course, TVs and mobile phones, but they have them in their cars, they have them in their, in their thermostats, and in their picture frames, if they have digital picture frames, they have them at their office, in their laptops, and their desktops. Displays are everywhere. They're a key part of this whole society.
And what do you think about those printed displays? They're really happening, where it's going to be like a bunch of printed displays?
There's a big part in the future. Eventually, you heard the keynote speaker from Google will have every surface in the home being a display at some point. And this is not a vision of 50 years. I'm not sure if it's 5 years, but it's somewhere in the 3 to 10 year range.